please call the roll.
Mr. Smith? Here. My mic's not working. Ms. Tanner?
Here.
Mr. Burt? Mr. Bender? Mr. Corbin?
Here.
And Mr. Strickland?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, the first thing we're going to have is the monthly finance review. Annie?
Hey, good afternoon. Let's go over the monthly reports. So the first report we have is the Sales Tax District 3 report, the actual through February 2025 and the prior 3-year collections. So if you take a look at the actual, we have January and February actual collections for you. February was quite high. We were almost 10% above February collections from last year. When we looked at the data, there was no one thing that contributed to the increase over February of last year. There was some back tax collections of a couple $100,000. There was the increase from Costco, and there was a couple of other small increases. So we're not 100% sure what caused the increase. It just seems like there was general increase in sales tax overall that accounted for that increase, besides those other increases that I mentioned. So that was sales tax collections for Sales Tax District 3. Sales tax collections for Highway 21 for January and February. February was up 123%, but if you recall, the first half of the year, sales tax collections for Highway 21 are going to be up due to Costco coming online, and so it was up in relation to that. Any questions on the sales tax?
Jeff?
Yeah, just one quick comment, Annie. There's been a lot of press nationally about people buying ahead of the tariffs. So that may have been a contributor to the February growth that you saw. And you may see something similar in March and potentially in April associated with that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The next report is the operating and grant fund balance report for you. We are currently working through the final numbers for fiscal year 2024. We have finalized the cost allocation plan, and so we should be done calculating the fiscal year fund balances this week. So we should be able to give you final numbers for fund balances in the next week or so. And then we have the budget to actual comparison schedule for through March 31st, 2025, which is 25% of the year complete. Most of the funds, if you take a look at the individual funds through the report, are about 25% for expenditures being spent through the year. The one thing I want to point out to you in the report, the significant thing that happened in March of 2025 is that we finally paid off the debt service for the coroner and for the library funds. So with that being done, we had about $27,000 in residual funds and debt service from the coroner's payments left in that fund. So we'll be retaining those funds in the fund balance we have held for the coroner. That'll go back into our funds that we held there. And then we had about $5,000 reserved or in residual funds for the library's funds. And so we'll be retaining those funds as well once those funds were paid off.
Okay.
The other thing to note, just so you're aware, the auditors were on site during the month of April. So they've been working on testing the financial statements, and they've been doing well. We've gotten them 80% of the items that they've asked for. So at this point, they're working off site, and they'll be back on site the first week of June to pick back up for samples and things that they need to test at that point in time.
That's good. I know you're glad to hear it, because that's quite a list when they start asking you to pull things. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Does anyone have any questions? Arthur?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I had a question. Annie, would this be an appropriate time to talk about grants, or would that be later in your presentation?
We can talk about grants if you have a specific question.
So my only question is have we received an email from Jean in terms of, it's my understanding that the home elevation project has been canceled. Have we tried to kind of figure out what, or put on hold more, where our exposure might be and how much that might end up costing the parish at this time?
Yes, so Jean has been working on that. Yes, the project was the funding was put on hold, basically. So at this point in time, we have about $1 million in outstanding receivables that have not been paid to us yet, but we have about $1.5 million in active elevations that would need to be completed because these homes have already been partially elevated, so we cannot stop in that active process. So we would be looking at an exposure of about $2.5 million.
Thank you.
Do we have any idea if I know they may cancel the program, but if we have outstanding out, will they pay? Or we do not know at this point?
I do not know at this point.
Okay.
We'll see what we can find out.
Okay. Mr. Corbett?
Yeah, Annie, would you mind just running across?
So-
Can you press your button again?
Press your button.
Sorry.
I hit the wrong button.
There you go. Annie, would you mind running across just the general fund line and go through each of those columns and tell us just explain what they mean?
Sure. Are you referring to the operating and grants projected fund balance report?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So on this report, and that's the third report that's presented there. At the top of the report, you have several columns. One section of the report is called budgetary, and the other section is called actual. So in the budgetary section there for the general fund, you have what we call the unaudited fund balance. So we're saying that's what our beginning fund balance is as of January 1st of 2025, which was right over $16 million. Then we have what our budgeted revenues are for this year, which is $22 million. Realize that the $22 million includes that $7.5 million worth of funds that we were going to transfer in from closing capital projects and from capital project funds. So it is not just regular operating revenues. Then we have budgeted expenditures of $26 million. That includes not just your regular general fund operating expenses, but also the costs of the state mandated agencies, the 22nd Judicial District Court System, the District Attorney's Office, the jail, and other state mandated agencies. Then we have a column for our amendments pending adoption. So there are some budget amendments out there that are pending adoption that will affect what our budgetary fund balance is. The majority of that item there is for the health insurance that was about $80,000. Then we have the minimum fund balance policy that says we need to hold aside approximately $12 million for cash flow needs to get to our projected available fund balance at the end of this fiscal year of about $70,000. So that's your budgetary fund balance column. So this is basically what did we budget to happen during this fiscal year. Then we have our actual column. So this is what has actually happened during this year. So right now our unaudited fund balance as of 1/1/25 is $17 million. So we're estimating right now, based on the things that happened last year, that our fund balance is going to be higher than what we budgeted by about $1 million. Then we have the actual revenues to date of $10 million. That includes that $7.5 million that we transferred in from the capital project funds. Actual expenditures of $5.7 million. The minimum fund balance, that $12.7 million, the same number from the budgetary column, and the projected available as of today, which is $8 million because of that $7.5 million transfer in. So if you back that out, basically it's saying that we have cash today of $1 million in the general fund.
Okay, so if I understand that, so the actual expenditure, the actual revenues, actual expenditures, and projected available are always all two date numbers.
Yes, actual is as of March 31st in this case.
Right, okay.
Yes.
So they're all just to date. They're not a projection of what the year is going to be.
That is correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Annie.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's move on to the amendments. Let me find my amendment number 10, ordinance calendar number 7866. Annie, you want to explain it?
I actually have that as a grants budget amendment number 4. Is that?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so ordinance calendar number 7866, the grants budget amendment number 4 is to add 3 items to the grants budget. The first item is from the state of Louisiana, the opioid abatement settlement, and this is actually to transfer some of the unallocated funds that we have available to purchase first responder equipment for some of the fire districts, such as defibrillators, airway management kits, suction units, monitors, CPR trainers, to be used in the for opioid overdose occurrences for $261,900, and you'll see this in conjunction with companion ordinance capital improvement amendment number 13. The second item on this grants ordinance is for Atmos Energy Assistance for $10,000, and this is to be able to provide utility assistance services to low-income families that are also Atmos customers. The total grant budget so far from Atmos Energy Assistance is $45,000. And then the final item on this grants ordinance is for rural transit from July 2025 to June 2026. And the total amount is $603,600. This is because it requires a 50% match. $300,000 is coming from the grant, and then $300,000 is being matched from Coast Council on Aging, and then we approximate $3,600 in cash fares.
Okay. Thank you. And the next, number 11, ordinance calendar number 7867. And I think this is this the insurance or
Ye-
health insurance?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
this is ordinance calendar number 7867. This is operating budget amendment number 8, the 2025 operating budget. And this is to amend the budget for the increase in the health insurance premiums for the remainder of fiscal year 2025 for 9 months. The total increase across all funds is $418,600. The total to the general fund is $109,100. The net cost overall to the general fund is $87,900. We approximate being reimbursed $21,200 from 22nd JDC for grants reimbursables from their grants. Public Works Fund, $173,200. Drainage Maintenance, $1,600. Environmental Services, $12,900. Public Health, $800. Animal Services, $19,700. The Criminal Court Fund, $1,000. The 22nd JDC Commissioner Fund, $600. Utility Operations, $58,900. Development Fund, $26,300. And various grants, $14,500.
And this again was due to the health insurance premiums going up. So this will be spread between the different departments and allocated as such.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay. Number 12, ordinance calendar number 7868.
Yes, ordinance calendar number 7868, operating budget amendment number 9 to the 2025 operating budget. This includes 2 items, and this is to amend the budget for the passages of the tax propositions for the library and for lighting district number 10. For the library, it's to amend the budget for almost $13 million for the tax proposition approved by the voters for the anticipated millage revenue at 4.35 mills, as well as the anticipated collection and pension fees, and then the transfer to the library for their fiscal year 2025 operations. For Lighting District 10, this is for $2,560 for the anticipated parcel fee revenue at $80 per parcel and the associated collection fees, as well as the expenditures for their fiscal year 2025 operations.
And ordinance number 13, ordinance calendar number 7869.
Ordinance,
Do you want to explain that? Read it and then let Ross? Or
yes, yes.
Okay.
So Ross, if you want to come up, let me read it and then you can take it over. Ordinance calendar number 7869 is capital amendment number 12 for coastal restoration. It's for the Wetlands Plan Phase 3 for $100,000, which is a project to develop an assortment of community-based meetings to inform and educate St. Tammany residents about the portfolio of wetlands and drainage data and mapping from previous phases. Funding of the project is from GOMESA.
Good afternoon, Council. Is this on?
Yes.
All right. I couldn't tell. Ross Lyon, Director of Planning and Development. I'm giving you an update on our Wetlands Planning and Policy Guide, give you a little context and a little background. If we would have had our audience that was here for the Scenic Rivers, we probably would have went pretty well over on both sides. So kind of missed out a little bit on an update. But I think someone stated, the Corps is not really interested in protecting St. Tammany Parish's floodplain. They're not. They're interested in flora and fauna. That's it. So this administration, going back to the first term that we had, has done several things in regards to development of St. Tammany Parish to make it more resilient, which is Unified Development Code, the Low Impact Development Guidebook, the Comprehensive Plan, and even such things as the Multimodal Transportation Plan that it promotes resilience of our roadways and our infrastructure. So I'll go through the memo a little bit, and if you have any questions, I'll maybe punt this to Councilman Corbin, who runs the Infrastructure Committee, and if you want to meet with our staff members who kind of head up the project, we're certainly willing to meet with you and go over everything that's taken place and what is to take place. So the purpose of establishing the St. Tammany Parish Wetlands Planning and Policy Guide, the Wetlands Plan, is to develop a planning tool related to the use and protection of wetlands within St. Tammany Parish when development occurs. This plan is to provide additional guidance related to wetland protection, impacts, and suggested mitigation based on the needs of the parish. And in the memo, it's underlined based on the needs of the parish, because what our consultants say is, and it's kind of goofy, but it's, the core is the floor. Again, they don't care about floodplain storage in St. Tammany Parish. If you develop in the wetlands, they don't care that it's impacting the floodplain. They only care about the flora and fauna. So we need to take care of St. Tammany Parish ourselves. So in the memo, that is underlined for emphasis. The Wetlands Plan is designed to provide information to the citizens and property owners of St. Tammany Parish and prospective land developers regarding the amount, characteristics, and value of wetlands and surface water throughout the parish. The goals of the Wetlands Planning and Policy Guide are as follows. Determine the quantity and quality of the wetland resources in St. Tammany Parish, map the wetlands for local planning purposes, maintain data for use by property owners, residents, and developers, identify existing wetland management areas, identify the quantity, quality, functionality, and biological diversity of certain wetlands, identify opportunities for protection, management, and development of water resources and related land resources in the parish, and develop planning standards to promote comprehensive management of water resources in the parish. In 2009, federal agencies adopted a wetland mapping standard, and organizations receiving federal funds for such efforts are required to follow a procedure that ensures that the new wetland data be collected in the format which complies with the standard. Our efforts comply with this standard. In addition to NWI mapping and gathering of data from federal, state, and local agencies, the following methods were used by biologists in the field: LIDAR, hydric soils, and ground truthing. While these maps would be useful to policymakers, developers, property owners, citizens, and economic development partners, they're not core permits. They're for our purposes here in St. Tammany Parish. What is likely, however, is that the decision to undertake a development will be clear and efficiency of permitting the process will be enhanced. That actually was, and I should have started this with, this was phase 1 in January 2022 to June of 2023. And we have a deliverable on that, again, if you want to meet as Infrastructure Committee Chair, I'm certainly happy to do so. Phase 2 was November 2023 to November 2024. Parish leadership and staff recognized the connections between impaired water bodies, wetlands, infrastructure, and development, and set to develop a strategy to understand the functions and the need for better decision-making as St. Tammany Parish rapidly grows and pressures mount for more development and infrastructure. St. Tammany Parish needs a multi-phased approach to provide the data and information required to make sound decisions that retain the character of the parish while ensuring a sustainable economic growth pattern. It was not in the phase 1 scope to address no net fill areas, critical drainage areas, and areas of special concern. The missing data left a significant gap in the wetlands mapping effort. The phase 2 scope provided the resources to specifically address these areas and will help staff and decision makers in permitting and protection efforts. This project very specifically addresses the Corps' responsibilities and very important new U.S. Supreme Court May 2023 ruling in Sackett versus the EPA. The Wetlands Planning and Policy Guide will greatly assist in the placement of infrastructure and the determination of future growth. In summary, phase 2, with this new granularity into the no net fill areas, critical drainage areas, and areas of special concern, were analyzed to help parish government, citizens, and businesses' interests make better decisions that can serve a public purpose in policy and permitting. The new legal environment due to Sackett invites a fresh review of policies and ordinances. Phase 3, which is in front of you for budget amendment consideration, would begin soon after, if approved. The purpose of phase 3 is to develop an assortment of community-based meetings to inform and educate St. Tammany residents, stakeholders, and decision makers on the portfolio of wetlands, drainage data, and the mapping in the wetlands plan. The community-based meetings will solicit feedback from citizens, stakeholders, and other organizations to provide the administration, council, commissions, and staff with the recommendations for protecting valuable wetlands, mitigating property damage due to flooding, and improving overall water quality and drainage flow. The data received from community engagement will assist in the refinement of data, models, and mapping for the purposes of the finalization of a scenario-based toolkit using valuation-coded wetlands and drainage maps. A final comprehensive report will be delivered outlining action items and recommendations, including any policy and ordinance changes, as well as a final GIS map. So that is the update.
Thank you.
I'm out of breath.
Any questions? Mr. Corbin?
So I think I'd be happy to get with you, Ross. I think it'd be important to understand those deliverables at each of the
Sure.
stage and get a more thorough
Absolutely.
briefing for the committee. Maybe we could look at doing that at our June meeting or do it offline with just you.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't be just me. In fact, I need my staff members who are a lot smarter about
Well,
this than I am.
I mean, just whatever the right group is. But
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's a good idea to
Tape,
do that.
what he said. Is it on tape
Look.
so we could play it back to him?
You know what they say, the indication of a good boss is hiring people that are smarter than them, so it's easy for me.
Thanks, Ross.
I mean, that's
Thank
easy.
you.
I did apologize. I didn't change the title of this memo. It says multimodal transportation plan. So if anybody noticed, if you continue reading, it's about the wetlands plan.
Thank you.
Mary, I don't know, was this distributed to the council members? Okay.
The last ordinance, ordinance 14, ordinance calendar number 7870. Annie?
Yes. Ordinance calendar number 7870 is capital amendment number 13, Health and Human Services. And this is that companion ordinance to the grant ordinance for the purchase of the first responder equipment for the fire districts. The opioid task force had recommended that purchase for the resuscitation equipment that included 2 units at $25,000 each, the CPR mannequin, $22,000, a CPR simulator for $12,000, and a defibrillator for $18,000.
Any questions? Do I have a motion to refer item 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14 to the full council? Second. Okay. Got it? Okay, thank you. The next thing we're going to talk about briefly is the TRAC, Transparency and Resource Accountability Committee. Some of us has been kind of working on this, and what she's handing out is subject to change, but I don't think the first 3 items, the purpose, the objectives, and the committee will change, but we may, and I'm asking input from the committee members on the process of how this works. If they have any, please email Mary and myself so we can maybe get this before the next meeting. Okay. The purpose of the TRAC is a formal partnership between the St. Tammany Parish District Attorney's Office and the Parish Council. The purpose of this initiative is to improve the council's effectiveness of governance, which will be accomplished by the District Attorney's Office providing additional resources. This process will enhance the council's decision-making ability and oversight during the budget process, as well as improve the reputation and credibility of local governments. The objectives is to ensure that all parish government funds are allocated and spent effectively and efficiently, forecast future needs and revenues to identify measures for tax reform. The committee TRAC will be comprised of the Parish Council's Finance Committee, and experts will be brought in as needed. All committee members will adhere to Louisiana open meeting laws, and all materials adhere to the parish record retention policy. The meetings will take place on an as-needed basis. Now, in front of you also is a process on how it works, but there may be some tweaking in that, and I would like to hear from the council the committee members, if they have any thoughts on this, of how we can better do this, or, like I say, please send that to Mary and myself, and if you have any comments going forward on this. Any comments, or anyone would like to speak on this? Mr. Coover.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that I talked to Mr. Phillips earlier, just because we did pass a resolution a few months ago about this, and basically the resolution, it doesn't give any it doesn't give any additional authority. It just says we're going to support this effort, or I guess I don't know if legal could just explain so the public understands. Just advisory only. Okay.
Okay. Go ahead, Mary.
The ordinance was to establish a committee.
Okay.
The resolution, sorry, the resolution. It gave some basic parameters, but it didn't go into this detail, but this reflects that ordinance, that resolution that y'all passed.
Okay, thank you.
And I will still say it's a work in progress. I think the purpose, what we're trying to accomplish in the committee is set up, but we need to look at the process on how this works and finalize that. Okay, Mr. Corbett.
Just, I was going to say, we did just get this the other day. I'll have some comments against it, or not against it, but in reference to it. I think there's more that can be pulled from the resolution that should be reflected in here in terms of scope, some more definition for purpose and objectives. So I'll be happy to turn my comments into you when I get them done.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Mr. Impostata.
I just wanted to say thank you all so much for working on this. I know it's going to take a little time to get it perfected, but it's going to have a tremendous amount of potential in us being more efficient with people's tax dollars. I know one of the first things that you're going to be looking at is at least we have to set the millage rates, I believe, in July. Mm-hmm. So we know we got more financing more funds than we expected with our property tax millages. So we want to look at how to reset those to get property taxes lower. So I know that's one of the first things you all are talking about working on. I appreciate that. The district attorney is also here. I don't know if he wanted to say anything, but I'm looking forward to getting this rolling. Thank you so much.
Please keep in mind when you say taxes, this is our taxes, but I am especially partial to general fund, and that does not roll back because we cannot afford it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That's why you're the boss, and you'll be making a recommendation.
D.A. Sims, would you like to say? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Oh, you want to wait just a second? Jamie Sikora, would you like to speak first?
With all due respect to Mr. Sims, and he knows how I feel about this, I'm not sure the district attorney who is claiming to be cash poor and needing funds for the DA's office is the person or the entity to be looking at other agencies of the parish and saying whether they are acting efficiently in the way that they use their funds. I think that's pretty self-serving. And I would think that the council would look for someone who might be more independent, who would not stand to gain anything by, say, finding that a particular agency of the parish is cash rich and may not need it. So I had actually expressed that same thing in a town hall meeting that the district attorney attended. So with all due respect, I think he's a wonderful litigator. He has a great office. I attend court as a court watcher, and I've been impressed by his staff and some of the convictions they got, particularly for child abuse and child murder in this parish, which is unfortunately pretty I don't want to say prevalent, but there's been a number of cases. So I just have a real concern that that the DA is the one. I think there's plenty of crime for the district attorney to focus on. I also think that having the district attorney involved in this, if he were to find something with an agency, by the fact that he's involved in it, his office is involved in it, already taints the process that perhaps something criminal is going on. And that's really not fair to an agency that might be using funds, and maybe they need some accounting and auditing assistance and stuff, but that having the district attorney involved in that, I think, kind of taints the process. And so I would hope that perhaps a forensic accountant, a forensic auditor, somebody like that would be more appropriate to lead that effort in looking at the efficiency of agencies across St. Tammany Parish that are funded with tax dollars. Thank you.
You want to go first or me?
I would like to go first.
All right, go ahead.
One thing I'd like to correct is the district attorney is not without funds. The parish is without funds to pay the district attorney. That is our burden. In order not to duplicate services and be redundant, the district attorney has lent us their forensic accounting specialist. So we're going to be sharing resources. But the people who need to find the money are us. It's not the district attorney who's going to be finding the money. It's us that are going to be finding the money, because we're the ones who don't have the money. The voters have spoken, and we respect the voters, but we have to live within those means. So the last thing I want to do is spend redundant money and hire another forensic specialist in this case. Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you. Ms. Terry Lewis Stevens.
Good afternoon. I would like to add on to what Jamie Segura said and quite plainly let you know that there is a very apparent conflict of interest having the DA involved in this process at this point in time, because his entity is one of those that was identified as being one of the targets of the effort. So there's no denying there's a conflict of interest. That's not good. It's not a good look for the council. It's not a good look for the parish when the person who's supposed to be reviewed is doing the reviewing. So I would encourage you to spend the effort and the extra money if you need to get an enhanced audit, which is different than a forensic audit. Forensic audits suggest criminality. There's none of that that's been identified in St. Tammany Parish at this time in any agency. And to suggest that by using a forensic audit is inappropriate. So I would encourage you to find another resource that does not have the clear conflict of interest that the DA absolutely does unequivocally. So thank you.
Mr. Impostado.
First of all, again, like Councilmember Laughlin was saying, the Finance Committee is the lead on track. District Attorney is providing and helping us and partnering with us to provide resources. I also would like to make sure I make a point. TRAC is here to help utilize or help be more efficient and effective with government dollars. It's not an investigation. We want to work together with agencies, internal and external. And the number one goal is to provide better service at a better cost. That's it. Thank you.
And I agree. Oh, okay. And I agree with your comments.
I just have a question. I don't really have a. I just
Okay.
have a question, not a comment. So, TRAC is the Transparency and Resource Accountability Committee, and then it defines the committee as the Council's Finance Committee. But then on the next page, it says a kickoff meeting will be scheduled with the committee members, which would be the Finance Committee, the organization's leaders. So I guess I'm confused as to which organization.
When you get below committee, that's just a draft, and we still have to go over it and make changes. If you're looking at this.
Oh, okay. Yes,
Okay.
yes. Okay. So that's what I was going to ask. Who's the organization? If the organization is the finance committee, then is there another organization that I'm missing? And so, yeah.
Okay, Jeff?
Actually, I'm trying to grab my piece of paper because I did read that. There's a reference to an outside organization that we're investigating. You can borrow it. So you got,
So the organization that's referenced is the organization that will be investigated at that
Correct.
time?
Yes.
Okay.
So that kickoff
Okay.
meeting will have the committee itself, the people, so
The
there's
leadership
coordination.
of the organization that's being investigated, the forensic auditor from the DA's office,
Yes.
and you?
Yes.
I'd like to characterize it as a review as opposed to an investigation. So it's a review of financial activity, not an investigation.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just, Gina used those words. So I wanted.
Sorry, I was just trying to clarify.
I understand, but.
Gina won't use those words anymore.
I won't use that word anymore.
Thanks,
Mr.
Jill.
Sims?
Yes, ma'am. So respond to a couple of things. One is that DA's office conducts reviews, investigations all the time. It's nothing that this is not outside of our wheelhouse, abnormal. We conduct white-collar investigations all the time. We've built out a civil white-collar investigative group. That's something that we just do. I personally have conducted money laundering investigations, bank fraud investigations, FDIC investigations, drug trafficking cartel, money laundering efforts across the country. I don't look at this as a heavy lift. It's following money, which is something I've done for 16 years. Tainted, I'm certainly not going to review myself, and that's something that I submit to you guys every year. I'm more than welcome, and in fact, if anyone would like to start with the district attorney's office, I'm more than happy with that. I think at last request, I laid out every single position that the district attorney's office at the time that was being reviewed was the criminal division, what everyone makes, the range of pay, the expectations, the things that we'd like to build, the cost associated with those things. Every one of you has received copies of that from me. So, second thing, I stand to gain nothing but hopefully the taxpayers' credibility in participating in the process to review and being transparent and report back to you guys the findings of where money is, where it's going, where it's located, and partnering with you to do that. I am a fact finder, assister, and reporter to you guys who make the ultimate decisions. I don't know in what world a conflict would exist. I do know that what has been mentioned, the first dedicated fund group, Mosquito Abatement District, is going to be reviewed. I can only assume that that's one of the chair people, Ms. Stevens, is up here thinking that we have a conflict. Those are dedicated funds. Any savings found in those funds to the taxpayer can't legally be shifted to the district attorney's office. So there is absolutely nothing that the district attorney's office has to gain other than saving taxpayers, to which I'm one, a substantial sum of money. Listening to meetings at the outset, it's clear that there is money to be moved around. A cursory review denotes that it's worth looking at, and that's what we're doing. Additionally, forensic audit. A forensic audit is not a nefarious term. It's simply a deep dive into financials. That's it. It's an accountant that's going to do a deep dive into financials in review. That is all that it is. But again, the district attorney doesn't receive any of those funds, won't receive any of those funds, but the taxpayers, let's be honest, they don't trust us. They don't. And again, I hope you guys review me first, get me out of the way so that I'm no longer an issue in my frivolous spending. But again, I go back to, you guys know what you fund me, you know what I've laid out, you know what comparative agencies spend on their district attorney's office. The district attorney's office is not cash poor. The district attorney is not looking for more money. The district attorney's office was attempting to avoid a massive budget cut to its existing budget, not for more. We don't need more. I think that was kind of been lost in the process. This isn't a money grab. This is making sure we can pay, as a government, all of the things that are necessary to function, and a review of allocation decisions made 15 and 20 years ago or before reassessments were done, whatever it is, when we're looking at why do we have more money than what we're spending and why is it locked away over here, to put the information to you guys that ultimately put it before the taxpayers to make informed decisions about running government. I think that I can assist in that. If at any point in time my value is not needed or we can assist you, I'm more than happy to step aside. But I am going to look at this stuff. And I am going to make all of the findings that we find as the DA's office arm of this are going to be made public to the taxpayers in transparent form. I'm not making any decisions. That's for you guys to make. But I'm certainly going to make sure that I do my part in assisting all of us in restoring the credibility of government and show the people where their money's going and where else it could be going. And you guys hopefully will look at it and say, what are there other ways to skin the same cat that is cheaper to the taxpayer? And let's get their trust back and show them what we need to fund to do the good job for them. Very simple. But again, happy to step aside.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Clark? Oh, Mr. Kugel?
Yes, thank you. I think everyone knows that the track is kind of like the local version of Doge, which is in the news all the time. We are looking to see how we can eliminate waste and save people, the taxpayers, money. And to DA Sims' point, you know, I know what I heard this last election, which didn't go the way I think a lot of people thought we were wanting it to go, because people don't have confidence in how their money's spent. I mean, I hear that all the time. And the only way we do that is if we look, you know, turn over every leaf and see how money is spent, and that so that people start understanding, like, this is how our money's spent. Now we'll trust you with this. Now we'll trust you with that. Because, I mean, but I think we certainly shouldn't have any sacred cows at all to say that we can't look here or we can't look here. We need to focus on, because we have a long-term problem if people are not going to renew millages and taxes. We're going to have a real long-term problem. And the only way to deal with that, based on my experience talking to my constituents, is we have to restore people's faith in how we spend money.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments? Okay. You can fill it out afterwards. Chief?
Obviously, I've been here a while and know what's going on, and I support it. Ms. Tanner, just like you mentioned, I think you said I have $14 million in cash on hand. I think you referenced in a previous meeting.
December, as the audit as of December 23rd.
It's actually more than that.
I figured it was. You've had a whole year.
Well, when I say that, because not just us, every taxing body received their first deposit in January from the tax collector. $2.5 million a month, you could do the simple math, is $30 million. So you collect money up front, you're gonna have cash on hand until spent. 5 of my 6 council members are here today. What did we do when y'all first got elected into office? I requested proactively to meet with all 6 of our elected officials from this council, proactively, giving y'all budgets, worksheets. We went into a deep discussion and dive into our finances. I challenge every taxing body to do that. I challenge y'all who appoint people to boards to make contact with those board members. You appointing them to be educated in that organization, but no one reaches back out and gets in contact with them. That's been an issue since I've been employed. So you're trusting the agency head, the board of commission, or non-elected boards, but not everybody's corrupt. That's why I'm standing here today, because it's hard to watch, quite frankly. And for a fire district to take a position to request an audit, that speaks volumes about what we do. I support complete transparency. But I'm going to say it again, not everyone is corrupted that works in a government agency. And if you want to look for money, we have to start right here, the biggest budget, correct? obviously I was involved in. I was involved in a committee 2 years ago with one of the taxes that failed, the reduced millage. So I reviewed the parish's budget, the DA's budget, the sheriff's budget, met with Leslie Long. I did my due diligence, serving on a committee. 40 hours of my life I can't get back. But educate yourselves. I know Colin Sims well, I think, well enough to trust him. To say I'm going to go in and just find money, you have to first understand the organization, understand their budgets, their area of expertise, because I'm in the public safety arena. So I put a higher value on what we do for the quality of life of this parish. If we don't secure what we have today, we won't have this parish. People are still moving here. We're still the 4th largest parish, 3rd fastest growing. I preach it every time I speak. We have to police ourselves and hold ourselves accountable through some process. I was never in favor of Inspector General. I'm in favor today. Because what Colin just said, the people don't trust government. I hope you understand today in my presentation, we want to be the model agency, and I'm talking about Fire District Number 1, to set the example for our public to trust their tax money with government. And I meant what I said. I want to give you more than what you're paying for. There shouldn't be a price on public safety. So I just wanted to make that comment because we're very proactive. I understand. I don't want to see corruption anywhere. That's why I want to know why the numbers are different. I've been doing this a long time. I haven't missed a legislative seminar. I know when something's not right. But I don't want to see the entire parish damaged by somebody's decision or taxes. We're talking about taxes right now. The elephant in the room is the tax roll. That's the elephant in the room. And yes, we put it out there first. We're talking about money. We're talking about where money is. You heard me say earlier, why? We're trying to find why. So we requested an audit, and I'm sure that once we get those answers, they'll be released. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And I do realize that you have 14 million, but I also know that you collect taxes in the rear, and you need that for cash flow.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other comments? Okay, the last thing on the agenda is, do we want to go over the property tax revenue? Do you have handouts? Do you want to, is that the recap? Okay.
Okay, it's all right.
Yeah, we can share. Okay, Mary, you want to, I'm sure the ones that's underlined is the ones we will be looking at to either probably roll back.
So I just wanted, I think one of the reasons why we want to specifically talk about millage rates, because the council will be setting those again very soon in July. So last year we had 9 new council members, and we had a reassessment year. So it was a lot on y'all's plates right at the beginning. So in front of you, just to kind of remind you of that process, and as you start to look at the numbers, the assessor's office works on what they call a grand recap report, which shows for each taxing district how much their millage or what their millage was based on the previous year, the total taxable amount value of property in their particular district. So you'll see the first several of them are all the same because they all have the same taxing district, which is parish-wide. Next, you have the homestead value exemption. So how much of that property value is taken off due to homestead exemptions, and then other exemptions like first responders, things like that. Then you get your total value. On the other side, I actually, while we're used to doing left to right, I actually go right to left. So then if you go all the way to total tax is the total amount of the tax based on the value. But then you're going to take from that other exemptions and the homestead to get to the actual estimate. Remember, when the assessor is doing this, this is an estimate. At any time, someone can come in and request a homestead exemption, and not only is it for that year, but the previous year as well. So all this is based on that. Now, for this year, it's going to be a little bit cleaner and easier because we already went through that reassessment, so we have a better handle of those numbers. So we can look at this current year to help, I should say last year, to help set those millage rates for those. So I did highlight the ones that the council will be voting on to set millage rates for, just so you can see exactly where they're at. The only change, so you'll see that public health is no longer on there because that has been expired, as well as the coroner tax is expiring as well.
Any questions? This is just some information that you will need to have when we start. We have to decide on the rate by June?
July. We will advertise in June.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Oh, I got a light. I'm sorry. I can't. You don't have names on it. Arthur?
All right. Thank you. Mary, so if I understand the grand recap correctly, so for drainage maintenance, let's use text number 8. All right, so the millage is set at 1.6, all right, and we estimated that it would generate 6.2.
That is not what we actually set the drainage millage rate for. This was done to help y'all just to estimate, yes. So that document is what the council and other taxing agencies received before y'all made a decision to help you in your decision-making process.
All right, so what did we actually set it at?
We actually set it at 1.56.
Okay, and what did we actually collect?
Around 4.7 million.
Okay. And that's so far, or is it?
So that's another interesting question as we delve deeper into all of this, is that, yes, we get a majority of those funds. So for the year 2024, those tax bills went out in November-ish. So we get a lot of those funds in January, February, March. So this is what we've received so far. But once again, someone can come in and get a sales tax homestead value exemption. So there's a little bit, this is the best estimate we can give you right now.
We'll
All right,
have more information, Arthur. I think she just wanted to hand this out so you can kind of get familiar with the form. We'll have more information as we go forward.
Okay.
Jeff? Administration, I'm sorry.
So, and Annie, correct me if I'm wrong, because we talked about this, but I want to make sure I understand. So we budget for this year, 2025, right? We don't receive the actual revenue for 2025 until the beginning of 2026, right? Because that property tax is not collected until the end of the year. But for our budgeting purposes, to know how much revenue we receive, it's on the 2025 millages. So what we do is we assume the last year with a little bit of growth.
Annie, did you want to speak?
I did, but I don't think so anymore.
Okay.
I was just going to point out that, and Mary said it, is that this was the grand recap from a year ago. So this was 2024's grand recap in May. So this wasn't the final grand recap for last year. This was not what was the final assessed numbers. And then it's kind of misleading in a sense because it says the total tax for like drainage is 6.2 million, but that's not actually what was the bills were sent out for, because that says total tax and you have to back off the homestead exemptions and things like that. So it is a very difficult report to read. So I think there's some things that we can do to make this easier for y'all to understand. So
Okay, well, we'll get with you
Yeah.
before that. Arthur?
I just, thank you. I just had one simple question, just to clarify. So when we mean growth, we're just talking about houses that are now in existence that weren't in existence when we did it. Is that correct, Mayor? Or businesses? Yeah.
Hey, Annie, I've got to ask, so I look at the title of this form, this data we were just given, it says St. Tammany Parish Grand Recap for Tax Year 2024. So is that the millages that were in place in 2023 to generate the revenue that was used, that was then collected?
So this was based on the millages that were in 2023 when the assessor started working on what he calls his WIP, his work in progress for 2024.
Okay.
So he takes what was in place in the prior year and starts, working on his numbers. And so he gives it out to the other agencies to say, hey, here's where we're working at. So here's where your millages were. So this is like a work in progress. This was not a final number. This is basically like a draft he gives out.
Yeah, but the report is dated 5/30/2024.
Yes.
So these millages that are in the list in the millage column were millages that were put in 2023 for the year 2024.
No, for the year 2023. This was a report he generated in 2024, but this was not final for 2024. This was a work in progress.
Then why wouldn't the title be Tax Year 2023?
Because this was what he was working on to give people an idea of how to calculate numbers. This is not really...
At that time, the parish council and other entities did not set their millage rate yet. So what they did is they just used the millage rate from the previous year to give those taxing body an idea of what they would collect.
Yes, so basically he said, here's where I'm at with establishing the value of property, and here's what your millages were last year. So if you assessed these millages, this is what you would collect. So this is really a work in progress. This is not an official grand recap.
Not nearly what was done.
Correct.
Right, and I think they're still processing some homestead exemptions, or have they finished?
They're still processing. We haven't received a draft at any point for 2025.
And why we're going over the old one is just to prepare you from when we get the one for this year, just so you can familiarize yourselves a little bit with because this is some of the tools y'all will have to use to set the millage rates.
Okay, well, I think that some of us needs to get with Annie before we go with this. Yes, Arthur?
And perhaps, Annie, we need a crash course from you.
Yeah.
So just if I understand it, the values, though, were what the millages are the previous year's millages, and the values are the estimated values of the new tax roll.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, where do we go? So can you, or do we have a copy of what we actually set in place, and so we could change our millages from this first one from 1.69 to 1.56? And then, Annie, can we get where we are with how much we've collected so far from the tax revenue?
Yes. And so the assessor at the end of the year, when everything's final, he sends out what's called the certified grand recap. So it shows you what each body elected as their millage and what the values are. Now, that's not necessarily what everyone collected, because people don't pay their bills. So, we can provide what was collected because, like Mary said, people don't start paying their bills until January, February, March. The majority of all the money, just like was stated, comes in January is when you get your big check. And then you have the majority of it February, and then you have a little bit in March, and then you get trailing stuff April through the end. But
at this point in April, we're almost
Yes.
to May, you're already in trouble. If you didn't pay your property taxes, your house is... You already got it.
Yes, you collect the majority of the funds, and usually, depending on the agency and if you're parish-wide or what district you're in, it can vary. But usually, we see about a 97% collection rate. So if he says, if the grand recap says you're going to collect $5 million, you're going to get about 97% of that. You're not going to get what it says because some people aren't going to pay their bills. Oh, well, I don't consider that because, revenue versus expense, so, yeah. Yeah.
I think we'll have more of this discussion.
Yeah, we
later
need to set
on,
a separate
okay?
meeting.
Is that all, Arthur?
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
All right. A motion to adjourn? Adjourn.